So quick update, it's now Tuesday morning. It's currently just after 8:30 in the morning. So this is the state of play in terms of the amount of water that's been generated since Saturday, roughly about 1:30, 2 p.m. As you can see, we're probably coming up to 2/3 of the tank, between half and 2/3 of the tank. What I have been doing this morning, I've let the water fill into the overflow. So as you can see there, the feed pipe's just filling up that overflow. What I want to be able to do ideally is get the tank to probably somewhere in the region of about this height of water, with the overflow as well. So I want the overflow fully filled up. I want the tank probably up to about here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the salt. So basically, I've got two 22 kilo Coral Pro salts from Red Sea. Each of those will do around about 80 something gallons of water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of those buckets just straight in. That will not cause a problem. We'll measure the salinity and then we'll kind of figure out roughly where we are in terms of adding the rest. I'll probably have to just kind of put, a small amount of salt in, on every 5 minutes for, until the rest of it mixes and gets it up to salinity. In order to be able to do that, I'm also going to have to add a heater in here. So I'm going to take one of the heaters that I put in the sump the other day, pop it in there. I've got the reef waves circulating the water, or one of them at the moment, but I'll put the other one on when we get a little bit more higher in the tank. And then once we get up to temperature with the salt in there, we should be able to figure out what the salinity is, get it as close as we can in the tank, just let the water overflow into the sump, and then the sump will start filling then. And then obviously we'll just kind of have to play around with the salinities after that. The issue I've got is that obviously the sand that I've ordered, so yesterday I placed my sand order, so there's a little bit of a kind of, I took advantage of a special offer. There was, I was looking around deciding what sand I was going to put in there, and I've opted for the £40 live sand bags. I think it comes from Carib Sea. So they're normally about £45 a bag. But there was kind of an offer on eBay where, it was a legitimate, retail shop, but there was an eBay offer on. So I saved about £4 a bag, so I saved about 10%. So I ordered 5 bags. So that's £200 of sand. So according to the calculations online, I've looked on the bulk reef supply sand calculator, and I've put in the dimensions of the tank, and it tells me I need about £195 of sand, which just sounds absolutely ridiculous, but kind of it is what it is. So obviously that will give me £200, and it's live sand, so basically it's going to put some bacteria. So the way that I think the live sand works is it's shipped relatively moist. It's not completely full of water, but it's moist. And in the moisture they've got kind of dormant bacteria, and then obviously when it hits your tank it kind of wakes up. So hopefully that's going to give me a little bit of a start in terms of just getting the tank cycling. When it comes to cycling, again, I don't really know which way I want to go at the moment. I mean, obviously the hobby's completely different than it was a few years ago. So a few years ago you would literally, start adding, an ammonia source and effectively go through the nitrogen cycle and, let the ammonia turn into nitrite, let the nitrites turn into nitrates, and then once your ammonia and nitrite were clear, then effectively you were good for fish, and then you just slowly add fish and let your bacteria levels build up. Obviously these days you've got different options in terms of having a bacteria source, a live bacteria source that you can just pop straight in the tank, and effectively, you're as good as good to go, basically, as long as you don't obviously overload the system really, really quickly. So I just don't know at the moment. Again, I've got a little bit of time at the moment. I'm not desperate, and that means I can kind of have a look and look at choices. But I've got one of my local shops is Kraken Corals. So obviously I'm Lancashire based, and Kraken is probably about 20 minutes from me. So I was having a chat with them the other day, and they suggested, you know, a couple of options. One of them will literally enable me to kind of put a couple of fish in there straight away, which just sounds absolutely crazy. But obviously, like I say, the hobby has moved on a little bit. So I just don't know. I just like I say, if I put the live sand in, if I was to put a live bacteria source in, you know, a couple of clowns, then, you know, quite frankly, in this size of tank, it'll probably be okay. But again, I'm not here to, you know, I'm not here to stress the fish out. I'm not here to do anything stupid. You know, I'm not trying to rush things, as you can probably tell so far. You know, I'm taking my time. All the equipment's, you know, bang on. So it would be silly of me to try and do anything crazy at this point. But yeah, I'm just gonna weigh my options up and just kind of, you know, think about things, and then I don't think I'll have to worry about it really till weekend. So I've definitely got a few more days. But the initial plan is to get the live sand in there. The initial plan is to get the water filled up a little bit more, get it up to temperature. So pop a heater in, let the circulation pumps just circulate the heated water around, get it all up to a nice temperature, and then add the salt. Obviously, as I'm adding salt, the water level is going to rise anyway, just because of the sheer volume that's in there. I mean, it's not going to go up a huge amount, but obviously 22 kilos is going to displace, you know, roughly 22 kilos of water, which is probably what, you know, 22 litres probably. So that's probably equivalent to 4 or 5 gallons. You know, I mean, on a tank this big, it's nothing, you know. But you do have to account for it. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's going to, you know, the water level is going to rise when you add the salt, and it's the same situation when I add the sand as well. So putting 200 pounds of sand in, you know, that's what, just about 80 kilos, something like that. So again, that's about 80 litres of water, which is about 20 gallons. So, you know, it's going to come up a little bit just by adding the sand, you know. So obviously I'm going to get it to about here. I think that'll probably allow for the salt to go in there. And then when I understand that, I think it's probably going to nudge the weir. And then at that point, I can just kind of like just top it up from there, and then just slowly add little bits of salt. But the live sand's not really going to be affected, because effectively, you know, we've got the right temperature, we've got the right salinity in here, and then I can just kind of do the sump bit slightly separately. So yeah, the idea is to get the tank up today, get the weir filled up with water, and just trying to get it as close as we can. I think realistically, I think I've got another couple of days before we get to the point where I need to worry about getting it close, you know, just on how long it's actually taking so far. So I think, you know, we're probably going to be at the point maybe by Friday where we've got all the water in that we need, the salt in, up to temperature, and the tank's actually circulating and functioning as a proper circulating reef tank. So at that point, I'm hoping that by weekend, you know, we might be able to kind of think about doing the next stage on there. It has not gone as quick as I initially thought, but that's down to the water production volume. Like I say, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't cause me any problems whatsoever. You know, there's no rush at this point. But obviously, maybe I was a little bit ahead in my head because of the fact that I bought that 150 gallon a day unit, and it's literally producing probably about 30 odd gallons a day at the moment. I say I'm not going to try and figure out, you know, what the issues are today or tomorrow. It doesn't cause me a problem, so it can just sit there. It can produce the water, and then we're good to go. And then I'll try and improve the water production rates further down the line in the future. Okay, another update. So it's Wednesday. We started filling the tank on Saturday afternoon, around about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. So it's currently just after 8 on Wednesday morning. So it is a little bit deceptive because I've actually filled the weir at the back, and I've also filled probably about half to 2/3 of the sump. So it doesn't obviously show the full water production here. Let me just kind of show you So this is the amount of water that's currently in the sump. So I reckon we've probably got twice as much as that to go. That I just left that running the other day. I didn't want to kind of have it running overnight because I just didn't know how much it was going to fill up by. So what I've been doing is kind of filling the sump during the day or part of the day, and then I just mix the feed. So I put the feed into the weir, just let that fill up, and then obviously when it overflowed down into the sump. So that was probably most of one day, I think it was, to kind of fill the weir and the sump up to the point that it is at the moment. So I've just left the water putting back in the tank because I just don't want the sumps filling overnight. The tank, I know that it's probably going to fill like a couple of inches, over the course of like a day, or maybe an inch at night or something like that. So I don't have that kind of concern that I'm going to kind of have a flood. As you can see, I've got both of the heaters in there, and I've just connected it to a D&D heater stat. So when I bought some of the equipment second hand, as I mentioned before, and one of the lots that I bought came with a D&D heater controller. Yeah, I'm just using that temporarily. It's not what I'm going to be running off the tank permanently, but it just helps me get the right temperature. So as you can see, we're currently running at about 25.8. I think it's set to 26. Obviously there's a cold feed going in there all the time in terms of the water going in, and it is the temperature at home is dropping as well. So that just doesn't help, but it's close enough. So as you can see, the GHL's in there, and as you can probably tell, I built a little stand for it. So I built a stand out of PVC pipe. So I didn't want the GHL resting on the floor of the cabinet, just in case any water spills or anything like that. It's just not worth the risk. It's really tight in there. Obviously with the sump extension here, and with the GHL power bars, and also the media basket at the bottom, believe it or not, it literally just has a couple of millimeters gap, but it will slide out. So yeah, what I can do is I can obviously, I kind of run out of pipe. I bought one length of pipe, 3 meters, thinking that's going to be plenty, and actually it just about did me. I think I literally had about 3 inch of pipe left, after all the little cuts and things like that. I've not glued it together. It is solvent weld pipe, but to be honest with you, it fit really well. I did get some solvent glue, so I mean at one point I might do it, but right now it's just okay as it is. It's not causing me any problems whatsoever. But it literally it's there just to raise the GHL Profilux and the doses off the floor. Obviously I've left a little bit of room at the top because you never know, at some point in the future I might think about getting one of the KH directors, or even investing like the ion director. I mean, like I say, it's just hit and miss with GHL. The equipment's absolutely fantastic, but the reviews have been all over the place in terms of the ion director and KH director. Yeah, and they're not cheap as well, so obviously just need to think about that. We've still got the rat's nest of cables down at the bottom. So the plan is, I'm working on that probably today and tomorrow after work. So I've got some 3D print PSU holders, power supply holders coming. So there's 2 for the Reef Waves, which I've ordered off eBay. They were about £12 for 2, so £6 each. And then a relative has got a 3D printer, so I managed to get some 3D print files for the Reefer 7000 pumps. So there's 2 power supplies there. So I've asked him to make me a bracket for that, which he's going to hopefully provide today, and also the power supply units for the Reef Wave controllers. Again, there's 2 of those needed. So yeah, just going to help. And also, by the way, sorry as well, sorry to forget, but also 3 power supply brackets for the Radeon XR30s. So with all of those brackets, I should be able to kind of, well, my plan is probably to kind of screw them to the back of that plastic unit there. I think that's the most sensible option. I was debating whether to kind of put them on the wall or whatever, but just, you know what, I'm kind of thinking I'll probably not bother. I mean, I could probably actually drill through that and put them on the wall there, or some of them, but it is really tight. So I'll just see what the brackets are like, how big they are, what it looks like, and then make a view. But basically it'll get all of those power supply units again off the cabinet floor, you know, out of the way of like little splashes and things like that. And also it's just going to give me a bit more room to work. I can then tie up all the cables. I'll cable tie them all up and just make them all nice and neat. So everything should be, I mean, after I've done all of that, everything should be neat. The only thing I need to do is run the temperature and pH probe for the GHL. I'm not going to put dosing lines in at the moment because I'm not going to be dosing, but like I've showed you before, I've got the Red Sea dosing lines, so I'm going to run those probably later on. I'll just keep them to one side, and we'll just put those in whenever we need to do that. But yeah, there's steady progress being made. It is frustrating that obviously the tank's not filled up as quick as I was hoping for. I put that down to, like I say, lots of factors. Temperature of the water coming in, it is really cold at the moment. Temperatures drop right off, and I'm feeding it from the garden hose outside, so it is outside. The water feed is outside, so straight away we've got like ultra cool water before we even start. Obviously there's quite a lot of length of pipe from the RO unit feeding into the living room here. I mean, it shouldn't make too much of a difference, but it probably does. You know, there's quite a lot of pressure that it's got to go through all the pipe. And to be honest with you, the PSI of the water coming out of the garden hose itself, it's running about 30 PSI. So obviously, really, you're probably looking at, ideally, it should be 60. So it's probably a half. So, I mean, at the moment, I'm probably getting about 35 gallons a day off it. That's roughly what I'm getting. To me, it doesn't bother me. I've got all these other little jobs to do on the tank, so quite frankly, you know, it being full of water isn't my priority really. What I have done as well, so I have put an entire full 22 kilo bucket of the Red Sea Coral Pro salt in there. So basically all of this you can see here, all of this water volume, that's got 22 kilos of salt in it. So I tested it this morning, just before I added the rest of the salt. So I added about probably 4/5 of it yesterday, and then topped it up this morning. Before I added the extra fifth, it was running pretty much bang on for salinity. So it's actually probably over now, but obviously that will equalise out as the fresh water fills up today. So what I'll do, I'll test it at the end of the day, see what the water level's like. I'm hoping it gets to probably somewhere around here, and then I'll test it and see what it's like. There's absolutely no salt at all in the weir, and there's no salt in the sump. So obviously that's completely fresh water. So when eventually the pumps are switched on, everything's going to mix, and the salinity is just going to drop right off. So I'm probably going to have to over salt it before it hits the top of the weir, to account for the fact that the fresh water's in the bottom, so it'll all mix properly, and then just leave it for a few hours to mix through, and then hopefully we'll just have to kind of like just adjust it at that point.